This episode of Twin Cities Trekkies is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor before, let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that help you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership required. They'll also help you to distribute your podcast so it can be heard on many different platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's all you need in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right. Welcome to episode 18 of Twin Cities Trekkies. I am
Oh,
Wes.
wow. I'm Kenzie.
Yeah, 18. Wow. 18th episode. And in today's episode, the next two episodes are going to be, the general idea is going to be lists, actually, I would say. Because this episode 18, is going to be about the weird episodes of Star Trek. Kenzie, you had mentioned it, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, I feel like it comes up a lot because I feel like more than people remember their favorite episodes, they remember the worst episodes they've watched.
And sometimes the worst episodes they mention are the weird ones.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to talk about maybe like a handful of episodes from, any of the shows, granted there's 10 shows now and soon to be a dozen, I think, with Prodigy and Strange New Worlds.
I feel like at least for a lot of my lists, I definitely think most are focused on like the older series. I haven't seen a lot of bad episodes in the newer series, so
yeah,
that's because they've had a lot more dedicated writing and stuff. And some of these episodes that will be listed are because of, like bad writing or like lack of writers.
Yeah, or severe scientific flaws.
Yeah.
Yes. Except with like one I'll probably mention too, and I think both of us will agree on one of them. So to get in touch with us is simple. Email us. Our email address is tctrekkiespodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to send us an email with anything you like to say or anything like that, or any episode suggestions down the road. We'll gladly take them. Any idea will not be refused. Because it's mostly by us, but we would love to hear your suggestions for episodes too, and we'll gladly give you credit if you give us an idea. So definitely do that. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. The handle is TC Trekkies Pod for both social media platforms. So that's kind of nice. It's pretty easy to find. Both of them are easy to find. And and then if you also want to send us a voice message, we would gladly love to hear your lovely voice. So to do that, go to anchor.fm/Twin Cities Trekkies. Once there's a little button towards the bottom of the screen that says message. Click on that button. It will give you options to send us voice messages. It can be any length of messages. It's perfectly fine. Just let you know that once you have submitted your voice message, it automatically generates an email from Anchor to us. So saying that, there's a new voice message available. Please listen. So that's what happened about 2 or 3 months ago with one of the people that I found. He messaged us and did a voice message for us, and that's how it happened. So definitely, that's perfectly fine too. But just keep in mind that any feedback, either vocal or written, may be used in a future episode of this podcast. All right, the weird episodes of Star Trek. I
Oh
think there's a
man.
whole bunch of them, and if you're not a Star Trek fan, you would think Star Trek as a whole is weird. Uh,
Yeah.
with all the alien species, the crews encounter, and stuff like that. Like, who are these bumpy-headed aliens, or these pointed-eared aliens? If you weren't a Trekkie, you wouldn't know who they were. So,
Yeah.
and you
And
would,
it's kind of like trivial thing of like more like looks or judging how people dress. But
mhm,
these are episodes where I would say I judge them for being weird because of the plot line
yes,
or
and
how they're written.
yeah, and some of them I consider guilty pleasure episodes too. Um,
Oh yeah, there are definitely some that have become like cult favorites. Like they've
mhm.
gained cult following. Like they're so bad they're good. Like you have to watch them just to be like, I've seen it.
Yeah, you go like if you have to see this, and then you can either love it or hate it. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about today. So that's going to be interesting how we're going to all go about do this. So you know, I know most of the episodes off the top of my head, so I don't have a written list anywhere. So that's just me because I have a fantastic memory. So
Oh man, I had to kind of curate my list a little bit
uh,
and write down because I always need to do that.
yeah,
But yeah, I was so kind of thinking through it and I felt kind of bad because I ended up with a lot from Next Generation, surprisingly, which I was like, I didn't really think like overall, I always feel like Voyager has the worst, like a lot of the episodes that I thought were kind of wacky or weird. But TNG also had a lot, and I listed more off the top of my head from that than Voyager. So Voyager, I think I would need to deep dive a little bit more to be like, there's one episode from Voyager that everybody always infamously talks about, and I
yeah,
think you know what it is too.
yeah. we
And
we can start off
yeah,
with that one if you wish.
yeah, I would say that's probably the worst Star Trek episode ever. Is Threshold.
Yep.
Um, terrible. But also like I think everybody needs to watch it at least like once just to be like what just happened, like what fever dream was this.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't know,
So
should we like explain like the plot of these
yeah,
just for
just
people
a
who don't
brief
literally know
description,
them?
like a brief overview of the plot. So what happens in Threshold is Tom Paris breaks the warp 10 barrier and ends up evolving into this salamander type creature. Uh, Him and Janeway
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and then impregnates Janeway and they
Yeah,
have a bunch of little salamander children and then they
yeah,
just like get rescued and leave the salamander children on the planet and no one ever talks about this whole incident ever again.
yeah, exactly. And it's written by Brandon Braga. The episode was written by him, but he was known for in the during this era of Trek as the one who would write bizarre episodes. So
Yeah.
so so this is definitely qualifies as bizarre. And
I the other like one that I think is a little bizarre too is Innocence, like where
mhm,
Tuvok is with all the kids on the planet, like
mhm,
the weird like choosing to let them die kind of thing. Like it's super weird, just like helping them
mhm,
go die, I guess. I don't know, like just a really weird thing of like Benjamin Button disease type of thing. Like everybody is like
mhm,
aging backward and yeah, it was just that one is one where like the scientific absurdities of just like
mhm.
logical biological stuff. It's just like what?
Yeah, in a sense. Actually, you know what, Kenzie? I've actually never seen that episode through and through. There are a
Oh,
handful
really?
of, yeah, there's a handful of Voyager episodes. There's a handful of original series episodes I've never seen through and through.
Is it because you just like turn it off, being like, I don't want to deal with this, or is it
Yeah,
like it's like
it's more
a
like
skip over it?
it's more of like a skip over episode. Threshold for me is a guilty pleasure episode because
Oh yeah,
it,
it's like I want to watch that one. That's the one where I'm like, you want to see some really messed up writing? We're watching this. So at least
yeah,
it's interesting. My problem with Innocence is it's just like it's it's kind of a boring episode, like
hmm
it's a lot of just sitting there, a lot of dialogue of just like, yeah, well, that's what's gonna happen. But I mean, I guess like the interactions are kind of nice, like between the characters, but it's boring, like which it's in itself is its other like
Hmm.
where Voyager is pretty like they have some pretty intense episodes. Like you will get things like Year of Hell and really insane like 2-part episodes or anything like that, and it's
Yep.
like really action packed. And then you have something like that where it's just very like a very slow paced episode.
Yeah, and sometimes those slow-paced episodes they make you want to go take a nap. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's probably why I haven't seen that episode through and through. There's a few episodes from season 2 of Voyager, and Innocence is in that second season. Um, that I haven't seen from Voyager, and that's not because of like I just want to skip them or anything like that. It's just because I just it doesn't like pop out to me, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's probably why I haven't seen that one through and through. Um, Another one from Voyager's second year that I really think is a really weird episode, but also a very, very good one is the Thaw.
Oh yeah.
The one with the clown, and Mike McCann plays the clown in that episode, and it's it's weird, but it's also very, very well written and very well acted, especially by Mike McKeon, who
Yeah, I thought it
plays
was
the
like a
clown.
cool. Yeah, I thought it was cool that he was in that. Where I'm like, oh wow, nice. Like I remember rewatching that one. Actually, not too long ago, because I was trying to get Fletcher to watch it, and he
Mhm.
pointed out because he likes watching Breaking Bad, and he's the brother
Yeah.
in that
Hmm.
to him. So it's like it was kind of cool. Where he's like, "Hey, is that Michael McKean?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "That's him," just casually playing a clown that's running a weird like psychological trap for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's pretty much what it is. It's about these colonists who froze themselves and because their planet was experiencing nuclear winter, I think it was.
Yeah,
And what had happened was the program was supposed to end but never did because of this clown program called Fear.
yeah, it's like a really spun out of control virtual
Yep.
reality.
Hmm. And Mike McKeon is very, very well in this episode playing the character of, I think the name is Fear.
Yeah,
So it's got like elements of Stephen King's It in it.
yeah, it feels very much like a psychological horror, because it's like who
Mhm.
know like this is how everyone's perceiving them, and like it was written by it's it's some sort of virtual reality created that's just become like it's all intended to be based on like utopian ideas of
Mhm.
making a society work, but utopias are built on fear. And instead the fears were the things that started like becoming the main points of the virtual reality.
Yep, and it's great that Janeway gets into it and actually tries to end the whole situation, and even comes close to sacrificing her life to make sure that everyone else survives. So, and
Yeah.
it's a great weird episode from Voyager. Because
And also just another one of those weird things of like the doctor's weird existence of being able to just be like kind of an observer, but
mhm,
being able to like help out, because like the simulation does nothing to him. He's just like, oh hey, I am literally made of the same like
yeah,
code, everything. Like I too am a simulation. So
yeah,
let me just step in here real quick and be a little bit of the messenger and figure out how to help everyone.
yeah. So yeah, yeah. I know Voyager has the most weirdest episodes. So, but we don't mind it. We don't mind that. I don't.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's great.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that like there's definitely just some really weird like definitely for different reasons. Like
Hmm.
I like they're just all over. Like I don't like tattoo. Like that one seemed really cliche. for
Hmm.
Voyager, because it's like there's so much around his like ethnicity and like exploring his past, but I'm like, this is in the way future, and based on how things are going, are people really that connected to like when he's like way out in space and like
Hmm.
all this stuff? Like it just seems really like the timeline of like how he grew up and that type of like perception just seems really weird in that century. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it just it's really weird to see it focused that much. And then I always hope that it's like accurate portrayal or at least an honorable portrayal, but it's like the fact that you're like talking through spirit people through a tattoo, it seems a little like cliche or a little like stereotyped. And I'm like, I hope you guys had like a Native American writer like overseeing some of this, and you're not just like
Yeah.
writing this in a really like tone deaf like cultural like examination. Like
Yeah.
at least put in some effort, like Dances with Wolves, and make sure you have tons of like native people, like especially whoever he's supposed to be representing, like what like tribe and everything that he's supposed to be from. Like
Hmm.
I but yeah, I definitely like that one was always a little weird where I'm like, it seems really out of place, it's a weird
Yeah.
episode, it feels out of place.
Yeah, and I agree with you on Tattoo. I've only seen the episode once, and I agree with you 100% on every point you said. Um, and it's unfortunate that Chakotay wasn't very well developed in Voyager as a whole.
And then
Um,
ends up randomly with 7 of 9. Like, oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
I will never I will never quit proselytizing about shipping Janeway and Chakotay, especially since I have gotten friends into Voyager, and she had seen all the different episodes. She watched every single episode. She would message me about all the weird ones. She'd message me about things like Tattoo. Threshold, of course, was like where she's like, what the heck?
Yeah,
And I'm like, yes, good. You made it. But like
yeah,
she the whole time is sitting there messaging me about how much she loves Chakotay and Janeway's chemistry. And I'm sitting here, my heart breaking, not able to tell her because I don't want to spoil it, that they don't end up together. And I'm just like, oh, I know you think that. And same. And everybody else did too. But
yeah,
I hate to break it to you, but they never end up together because I don't know, writers, who knows, really bad lack of oversight, like on the character development and storylines.
yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. It's kind of sad that Chakotay wasn't very well developed and stuff like that, and it's unfortunate. I mean,
And I think that's another big key factor in a lot of bad episodes, or like the characters that are underwritten or
hmm
badly written, they have no idea what to do with, so they'll just make a really weird episode around them
yeah,
for like weird character development. But it's like this ends up being like, how did this even come to be?
yeah. That's totally so. Yeah. So, I think I want to mention another one from Voyager that I'm thinking of is Course of Oblivion. The one with the mimetic life form having their own Voyager, and then they have that disease that like kills them all. They turn into this metallic
Man, it's been
goo.
so long. I can't
Yeah,
even remember.
it's the one where it's a really weird episode. It's written by Brian Fuller, the creator of Discovery and stuff like that later on. But it's an episode about the one with the mimetic life forms who are like pools of this liquefied deuterium and stuff like that, or something like that. They were
Oh,
part of that
they basically show up just to find out that they'd already passed, and that's it, and it was like
that
destroyed.
yeah it was a sequel to that episode Demon from season 4 with the
Yeah,
white class life forms, white class
yeah, the
planet life forms for
silver weird
blood
blood
people.
copy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a bizarre episode because we follow this crew throughout most of the episode, and they're all dying and stuff
yeah. I
like
was like,
that.
that's a really depressing episode. I think I actually don't. I don't think I fully watched that one through, or if I did, I watched it very much like, okay, I just have to get through it because I barely remember that. But all I remember is that I was really depressed about it. Where I'm like, wow, That was a very depressing episode. Anyway, let's
Yeah, there's no
move on.
yeah, there's no happy ending. Yeah. We follow
Very
this follow
no
this
catharsis really. Just like, oh wow, they were too late, which I guess is a reality. Like I'm not every like I think that's a pretty good call out for a reality of like being in the federations. And I'm sure there's a lot of times where they've had distress signals, but they
Mhm.
don't make it in time, you know? But we don't often those written in because no one wants to really see that. But I think this is like one of those episodes where I guess they decided to try that out where they're like, hey, what happens if they get a distress signal and they just don't make it in time? By the time they show up, it's just like, oh yeah, you guys missed
Yeah.
it out. You missed it. Like they're done.
That happened a few times on Voyager, actually.
Yeah, I
It,
think
it,
Voyager definitely delved into some of the like moments of failing pretty hard, like where it's like that didn't work out because they're kind of surviving, you know. That's why I like Voyager because there's definitely a lot less resources to play, so they make a lot riskier
mhm.
decisions. They definitely bend the prime directive a little bit because they're playing survival,
Yeah.
and they end up getting themselves in a little more like complex situations where they're not just being like the prime directive. They're like, well, we're also lacking resources, and I think we could barter or figure something out. No one needs to hear about this, right? Like this type of stuff like that where they're kind of wild westing it and being like, we might need to scrub the logs for this one.
Yeah, or
I'm sure Threshold never made it into the captain's log.
oh,
Got back and it's like, hey, do you guys remember that? Like, no, we nobody talks about that. Shut up, Tom Paris. Like, don't say anything.
yeah, the ending of Threshold is really weird too. Like, because Janeway and Paris have this conversation in sick bay, she goes, I thought about having children, but I'm certainly never imagined having them with you. Uh,
Oh man.
yeah, she said that to him, and I'm going like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
It was like so awkward conversation. It's like, oh, how do I explain this behavior to my captain, even though I just screwed her and have her had babies? Um, yeah.
I think a lot of my episodes that I have gripes of too are holodeck episodes. I feel like there were so many episodes through like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager that are all like holodeck stuff. Or
Yeah,
like, you know, like vacation or like away stuff. Like
yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
those always have the like potential to be really bad episodes, either because they're really cliche or they just I don't know, like write in a really weird scenario for character development.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, granted, the Sherlock Holmes episodes are from Next Generation are, I think, the two Sherlock Holmes episodes with the holodeck and Moriarty are fantastic. And like you mentioned the holodeck, there's a few bad holodeck episodes. One comes from
I mean,
Lower
yeah,
Decks.
there's yeah,
Badgie,
yeah.
Badgie,
Yep. Oh my god.
the Badgie.
I
Can I help you with this?
I'm trying to think. There's two episodes from Next Generation and from Voyager where they kind of have like sentient holodeck situations. Like the one with Data trying to like be stumped, like they try to make a
That's
holodeck program.
that's Moriarty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, more that one where he becomes sentient and they're just kind of like, well, we'll just leave you, and when the time comes to let you go, we'll just help you out. And I wonder if they ever did. There's one like that in Voyager too, called
Yeah.
Spirit Folk, where everybody becomes like sentient too. And I'm
Oh
like,
gosh.
yeah, and I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, and I'm like, so you're just gonna? It's like creating like datas or like the Doctor, and I'm like, how is nobody like up in arms about this? Being like, this is like a real issue with holodecks. Like, we're like creating sentient beings and just kind of being like, well, sorry, I was just having a good time with my simulation, and now you're ruining it by questioning everything, your nature of your existence. Like, so I guess we'll just kind of forget about it and keep moving on. And I'm like, seems a really messed up side effect that goes
Hmm.
pretty ignored in Star Trek universe, like the side effects of holodeck stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The one you mentioned was Elementary Dear Data. which is the
Yes. Yeah,
first show.
that's the yeah.
Yeah, and that's the first Sherlock Holmes episode. And with Moriarty, what's crazy is that Sherlock Holmes is British and stuff like that. It was written by a British man, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but then Moriarty is supposed to be English, but yet the guy who plays him, Daniel Davis, is from Arkansas. So
Yeah.
originally from Arkansas, but you would never know it because the way he acts like I think it was
It's
probably
that I've
auditions
seen
for the
that more
nanny.
often. Usually I see way more British actors playing American actors than the other way around. So that is surprising because
Yeah.
I've just seen so many more examples of like just British people casually playing off being American
Hmm.
and then coming to find out that they're British and it's like, wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
had
I
no
know.
idea.
It's crazy. It's a reverse, thing. It's kind of crazy that, and I think those two episodes that he did as Moriarty were probably his audition for the sitcom The Nanny, which he was a part of for the entire run
Mm-hmm.
on that show. Because he was the nanny and he was the British nanny, and and he played a British character then too. And it's crazy that he's originally from Arkansas. So
Yeah, it's so funny, yeah, because he plays a British butler type of dude, and it's just like it's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, and it's crazy. It like you said, you mentioned British actors playing Americans. The one that comes to mind for me, I'm just gonna divulge a little bit of right here, is Amelia Clark. Um, from Game of
Oh yeah.
Thrones. From Game of Thrones, she played. I mean, there was one Terminator movie that she played Sarah Connor, and she nailed the American accent very
Mm-hmm.
well. So, and it was Terminator Genesis. So I just thought about her right away when you mentioned that because she nails the American accents like very well. So even though she's British, so so
Yeah, I think that's super cool though. Like it's
but,
cool to see that range like of
mhm.
actors doing that, even if it's like for an episode that might be a little like I love seeing big actors randomly pop up in Star Trek. Like I think that's always really cool. That might be an episode to do like favorite like I don't know, like if guest appearances
Yeah,
because
yeah,
sometimes they're like shocked to see like a famous person where it's like, wow, that's kind of cool. Like I didn't realize they were in an episode of Star Trek. Like
yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I watch other shows, and I'm going like, hey, I've seen this guy from Star Trek.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so
it's
cool to see
crazy.
that.
Yeah, but you mentioned Spirit Folk, and we should probably mention Fairhaven with that. Um,
Yeah.
they're both from season 6. I think I want to say this right now. I think Star Trek treated Irish culture kind of bad.
Oh yeah.
With those two episodes plus Up the Long Ladder from Next Generation with those colonists and stuff like that who were Irish
Yeah,
descent.
there's hanging out in the
The
docking
cargo
bay
bay,
area and it's like what?
cargo bay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I'm like, what the frick? Like I'm like I yeah, that was like dumb where I'm like, how in the world does this exist in this time period? And also like, I don't know, it just that was a little weird too where I'm like there's sometimes like very like they'll make references to like 20th century like culture and I'm like
yeah.
would that really be prevalent though? Like,
Hmm.
I just don't think that'd be reasonable. They'd run across a group of people randomly that far behind. Like, I mean, I guess not. I mean, I wonder how Amish people are in the 24th century, but like, I don't know. Like, do Amish people exist? Like, will they make
Hmm.
it that long being tech phobic? But like, I definitely get weirded out when I see stuff like that where there's like a really huge reference to like an old like culture of Earth, and everybody's just like, yeah, oh yeah, we know, and I'm like, do you? There's like, I mean, the Federation's made up of like so many other alien species. We never once find some weird offhand Vulcan like group like that's just like nomadic or something. It's always like, I mean, it has to be understandable to the audience, I guess, but it just always seems funny that it's like, oh, Irish people and they're like cooking potatoes over fire in the cargo bay, and it's like, really?
Yeah, really? I mean, granted,
And
I
then of
mean,
course you just get to see the example of then Riker just being super like, oh wow, like I get to have the hand in marriage of this man's beautiful daughter, like type of thing, and it's just so awkward. I'm like, what is this? Like,
yeah, like I just want to mention that I think Star Trek treated Irish culture really bad in
Yeah, it's like
both
very
Next Generation and Voyager.
stereotypical.
Yeah,
And all
stereotypical.
very from a very specific point of Irish. Like it's like 19th century Ireland,
Hmm.
like these like old like famine time Ireland type of stuff. And it's like it's not how Ireland is anymore. Like
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. They portray the Irish as a bunch of drunkards and have the accent, the stereotypical Irish accent. So
yeah.
yeah, and I just wanted to mention
And
that
like
about.
I mean that's where most of my family is mostly from Ireland. Like oh that's how
Mhm.
my like great uncles and aunts and everything are all from there. And the irony of that is that no one in my family in Ireland drinks because alcoholism is super prevalent in Irish culture. So nobody drinks. And so it's funny. They're like, oh man, you must have heck of a party with those guys. It's like, yeah, we do, but no one drinks because it's like a super played out stereotype. And that's why no one drinks because they're like, hey, yeah, literally every joke about drinking comes down to us and like plaguing pretty much our whole like perception by society. So yeah, we're just gonna avoid that.
Yeah, yeah, we're just gonna like no.
But then
And
you have Tom Paris being like, "Hey, what I remember about Ireland, here's just this like little program called Fairhaven, where I'm just gonna make this whole like stereotype heavy Irish thing going on."
yeah. Oh, it just makes me like. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love all three of those episodes, but it just
Yeah,
whenever they mention Irish anything, I get a little because
I cringe. It's just
it's
that's like
just
me. It's the same thing. Like anytime they do heavy focus on the Native American stuff or the Irish stuff, like stuff where like it's definitely like I'm like I don't think this would be that prevalent in this period of time. Or like they just really like someone read a book once and they just decided they were like this represents all of what I know about this culture, and it just starts feeling a little like it just feels really cliche.
yeah,
So there's definitely some of those where it just you kind of cringe when you're like, oh no, this is going to be one of those like spirit guide episodes, and I'm like, yikes. Or like, oh, we're gonna go to 19th century Ireland, and I'm like, no, I'm like, please. I'm like, I know I'm gonna enjoy the episode, but also I'm just gonna cringe the whole time. We're hearing something, and it's like okay.
yeah,
But
and
that's the joy of the holodeck episodes. I don't know, people get to a chance to like write, some past thing and make it about that. So
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is. I enjoy those episodes, but it just makes me cringe, because of the mainly because of the accent. It feels like they're. I mean, they're doing the stereotypical one, and that it just bothers me a little bit, because
yeah.
part of my family is Irish myself. Like part of my family is Irish, so and my cousin is part of the Brian Boru pipe band in St. Paul. So
Yeah.
yeah, so he does that like I mean he does the St. Patrick's Day parade and stuff like that. So he's part of the Brian Boru um pipe band in St. Paul. So it just makes me cringe whenever they try to do the stereotypical accent, especially for those actors who are not originally from Ireland. And
Yeah.
that's just me, and that's how I feel about that. So, I want to mention one from Deep Space Nine that's kind of like a weird episode, and that's from the first season. The episode "Move Along Home." This is the one with
Oh
the
yeah.
Elmering, count to one, Elmering,
Yeah, where they play the weird game with the gamma quadrant people.
Yep.
Like, do you have games? It's like, oh, yeah, that was a move along home. They're like weird, like
Yeah.
yelling at that. Yeah, that was a weird one where I'm like, dang. Then Odo just being like completely oblivious to what's going on. Like that was definitely like they had way less of a slap on a wrist than that should have been because I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, and how are they getting away with doing something like this?
Yeah, I know, and it's I don't know why it was written too, because it's one of those episodes where you love it or hate it, just like Threshold is. I mean, you can't. There's no in between.
Yeah.
when it comes to that episode from the first season. You know, I mean, I enjoy it because it's just absurd. Um, but
Yeah, it is. And like, I mean, no one was actually in danger, but it's just like this whole thing of like not even knowing that. And everybody, it's like, oh, well, we imply it because it's like that's how you get the like the motivation to play the game. It's like your lives are on the line. It's like, oh, no, no one was ever going to die or anything.
yeah,
And it's
no,
like,
yeah,
well, that would have been really good to know, huh? Like,
yeah, and no, it's crazy, and you know, I do like there's interaction between there's a scene in Ops where it's after they've Cisco, Dax, Bashir, and Kira are in that game, and Bashir and Odo's off to Ops, and he meets Lieutenant Priman, and he greets him. Priman greets him and says, "Constable Odo, good to see you, sir." Or
yeah.
something like that. Good morning to you. Well, we can't just beam over, you know.
Yeah.
He goes like, oh, and then Oda goes, oh, is that Starfleet policy? And he goes, that's right. And he goes, well, I'm not in Starfleet.
Yeah. Like,
That's
oh my gosh.
that whole scene in Ops is hilarious. I mean, because Priman, he's only there for episodes 8 and 9 of DS9, but it's just the interaction between him and Odo is hilarious, especially in that Ops scene. I mean, he ends the scene goes like, "Is it against our free policy to push the foot buttons?"
Gosh.
Oh gosh, I see that scene all the time, and it's just, I mean, when I watch it, I just burst out laughing because I think it's played for laughs, but it's hilarious all the way through.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh.
One of my least favorite Deep Space Nine episodes is also from the first season, or is it? No, it's not. It's season 5. That's what I was like. I was watching it all out of orders. Let He Who Is Without Sin, that weird
Oh,
like vacation planet episode.
oh, Riza, yep.
Yeah, Riza or whatever, and they, yeah, like her or Dax and Worf are fighting there, and Worf decides he's gonna join some really conservative movement around not like casually having intimacy with other people there. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of like a really weird episode where like Worf is obviously bending the rules and helping out a group who he doesn't know anything about really. And it's like, they could be a terrorist group, Worf, and you're just like, cool, I agree. I'm fine with my girlfriend right now. Like,
Yeah.
and then that somehow at the end, like Dax and Worf are like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, dude, he was like helping some like resistance group that was like willing to endanger people's lives just because he was like angsty about the culture on that planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, like He Was Without Sin. Yeah, that's a weird one. Especially when Worf bursts in and sees Vanessa Williams with Jadzia there, like pretty much
Yeah,
that. Yeah, he's like, ah.
I know. And I'm like, God, I'm like, yeah, I don't like that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the group was trying to tell everyone who was on the planet to like, um, we need to stop relaxing and be prepared for anything that comes our way, like any threat the Federation has, like the Borg or the Dominion or stuff like that. And that's pretty much what their plan was, to pretty much scare uh and disrupt like turn Ryza back into what it really is. They disabled
Yeah,
the weather system and stuff like that to make what Ryza usually is, which is a rainy planet. Right for
yeah,
Reganar, right for Reganar. So, um, um, yeah, DS9, yeah, definitely doesn't have a lot of weird episodes. Maybe because the writing was so good.
yeah.
Um,
So like, I think Deep Space Nine has pretty good, like pretty solid,
mhm.
like foundation. I haven't ever really had a. That was my only one that I had from Deep Space Nine that I was kind of like, about. The only other one was the Mirror Universe episode, Resurrection, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I'm like, and that one is just more like, it's just like cliche writing, but I mean, it's a cool episode. But I don't know, it just kind
Yeah.
of felt like like it played it. You knew exactly how things were gonna go, like the whole like plot, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of like a boring-ish episode.
Yeah, and I usually tell people who are like, I mean, DS9 is my Star Trek, but I usually tell people, DS9 starts slow. It does in its first 2 years. Once you get to season 3, it goes up by 100.
Yeah, and way up. Like you
Yeah.
start actually like exploring like a lot of like there's a lot more like political and social things happening in Deep Space Nine than any other series, and that's why I like it because it really develops a ton of characters and their backgrounds without having to like have like in Voyager like really specific back building, like story building episodes for a specific character. Like they're able to like introduce like Ferengi culture and the social issues around that using like Rom and Nog and Quark and like the way they treat like women and all that kind of stuff. Like you can really get a read on that without having to have like a dedicated episode to one of those characters.
Yeah. That's what I usually tell people. I know DS9 starts slow, but when you get to towards the end of season 2 and going into season 3, it goes up a lot once the Dominion has fully made its presence known.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I like that, And I think some of the time travel episodes can be kind of weird too. There's one from DS9 that is kind of weird, and that's from season 3, but I would most likely put that as a weird episode more than a underrated episode.
Bad episode, yeah.
Would be Visionary, the one where O'Brien time shifts 5 hours in the future and sees the destruction of DS9, tries to prevent it, that kind of thing. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a cool one, especially when they blew up the station for the first time.
Yeah.
For the first and only time in
Gotta
Star Trek.
blow something up. They don't have a ship to blow up, so I better just blow up the space station instead. They don't have an Enterprise on hand to blow up like every other series.
Yeah, that is true. So true. It's like, and it's like it's one of those reset button time travel episodes, like episodes like Year of Hell and Cause and Effect and Twilight from Enterprise.
Yeah.
Those are like reset button episodes. But that's definitely one of those reset button episodes that is kind of like a weird one, but also really good. So, but that's but there is one from Enterprise I want to mention. It's called Extinction. It's from season 3. The one where Archer, T'Pol, Hoshi, and Malcolm are all changed into this
primal like cavemen like people.
Yes. Yeah.
Wasn't the writer for that LeVar Burton or
the director of it? Director.
Yeah, that's like all I remember about that. Where I'm just like, oh, I was like, it wasn't a.
I remember. I think it was like maybe a decade ago or something like that. He kind of like whenever someone mentioned that episode, like maybe at Star Trek Las Vegas or something like that, he kind of like shies away from it.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure he's not proud of it.
He's not proud of that episode at all.
Like that's hard. That's hard being someone who's like a creator or making content. And imagine like people constantly being like, "Hey, remember that terrible episode?" And it's just like, "Yes, I'm aware." Like, I tried.
Yeah, and it's I think he kind of like disavows himself on that episode because it was just so weird. Yeah, because it was like, it's just weird all the way through, and I think he's just like, but that's the way Star Trek was done back in the day. There would be a director's list and episodes were written in preparation, and the first script to be ready was theirs. So that's how it was done for 18 years. Now it's like you got with these new shows, the directors are chosen, but then I think they choose what episode they want to direct. So I think that's the way it works now with these with the new shows, except for Lower Decks and probably Prodigy, but definitely for the new live action shows for Picard, Strange New Worlds, Discovery. the directors are like have a list. They have a list of directors they want to contact and stuff like that. Say, hey, can you direct this episode for us? And they'll be like, okay, send me the script, and I say, okay, I'll do this one. I think that's how Jonathan Frakes pretty much gets his preference.
Yeah.
I mean, the casts obviously love him, especially Discoveries,
Yeah.
because he's directed like 6 episodes for them. So and the cast have gotten used to him and stuff like that.
I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of there's an episode like just like they give like holodeck stuff, but also like random random aliens that are just like an offshoot of like humans, like where it's like, oh, we found a random human civilization that's just been chilling out doing their own thing for a long time, or like finding out that like episodes like that. I think in Enterprise there's that one where they find like the Western life, like the Western civilization, and like some like old like Wild West civilization of humans.
North Star.
Like, yeah, North Star, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, the Western episodes were done really well. I would think that was
that was a very cool episode, but it definitely where I'm like, huh?
Yeah, it's the one where the Enterprise crew encounters this planet in the Delphic Expanse there's a colony of humans who were abducted during the 19th century.
Yep.
And by this alien race, and a few maybe like 50 years after they were there, the humans revolted, and how the aliens' descendants are now slaves. That kind of thing. So. And
cool episode, but definitely one of those ones where I'm just a little like, okay, like, we're at like, it's cool, but at least it has a little more of like an understanding of like how it comes to be. But it always feels weird. Like I think in the original series, there's a bunch of like episodes like that where I'm just like, what in the world? Or like they find the planet of the gods and stuff, and I'm like, I guess, but also it's like kind of cheesy. But also I'd say there's a lot of I can't even rate original series episodes because it's like so many of them are like written at such an early time that it's like a lot of them could end up on the list. Like they're like on a totally different tier of judgment than TNG and Voyager and Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. Like I can kind of like judge those a little bit more because like they had a lot more like dedicated writing for the plots and things like that. But the original series, I'm kind of like, you're an exception because I don't know, it's early on and you're just trying to stay afloat. So there's a lot of really wild episodes from that too.
Especially from the third year of the original series, especially the third year. Episodes like Spock's Brain.
Yeah, Spock's Brain. That's the one that I had my list that I was like, that has to be brought up. Like,
yeah, and Brain, what is Brain? Brain, what is Brain?
Yeah,
God,
I don't like that one.
It was written as a joke too. That's what's funny. The episode was originally written as a joke.
Yeah, it's super campy, and it's just like I don't know. I'm like, it's so weird.
Yeah, it was written by Gene Kuhn as a joke.
And then the Way to Eden as well.
Yes.
One.
That is a weird one. I've seen that one through and through, and it's weird, and it's just weird. And speaking of the third season of the original series, we can't go about for the weird episodes without talking about the highly sexist episode. Turnabout Intruder.
That one is I know. It's super campy too. Yeah, it's a super sexist. It's like, it's a lot of commentary around gender and
women's rights,
sex identity, which I think a lot of people try, but it is just it's just dumb. Like,
it's just it's just awful. It's just awful all the way through. And granted, most people have disavowed that episode.
A very crazy performance of Shatner in that.
Acting like a woman. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, I got this.
Basically coming out of it being like, women are way too emotional to be in commanding positions.
Captain.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, sure, whatever.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
'cause
oh, and it was, what year was it? 1969.
1969. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was in
I'm
the
like,
height
I
of the
don't know.
women's liberation movement and stuff like
Which is
that.
kind of messed up. It's like, hey, you're trying.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm glad that most writers of Star Trek after that have disavowed that final episode of original series, because
Yeah.
you have characters like Catherine Janeway,
Hmm.
Philippa Georgiou.
And also being the fact that most of Star Trek wouldn't exist today without tons of women fans and support around Star
Yeah,
Trek because of the women community. And that's why I'm like,
yeah,
what a slap in the face for that time period, given that a
yeah.
lot of your success was at the hands of women fans. So cool.
Yes, totally. So I'm just glad that, most of the writers since then have like said like we don't talk about Turnabout Intruder. Turnabout Intruder doesn't exist uh in the canon.
There's
It's
one
still
episode
there.
that always is like hard for me because I really like it, but also like it's just kind of just too much. Is the apple
Oh,
that episode? Like I really like it because it's like I feel like it's just like I think of the fact that so many red shirts die in that one,
yeah,
and that's kind of where the stereotype of that even starts because it's like, yeah, you sent people out on a away mission, like four of them like all died,
yeah, I know.
and it just seems like there's so much like that they're over interacting with this thing that doesn't really like
Yeah, that's a computer. Yeah,
matter.
yeah, with these tan like people tanned all the way head to toe and with
Yeah.
white hair. And, stuff like that. But there's one scene from that episode I actually kind of like and makes me giggle. Is like Spock examines one of these rocks, tosses it, doesn't care in the world, and then explodes. And he goes, "Would you mind being careful you throw your rocks, Mr. Spock?"
Yeah. Yeah.
He just looks
Yeah.
at it. He
I
just
no,
looks
I
at it,
really
tosses
like,
it, doesn't care.
yeah, explodes. And I really like that episode. I mean, like it's memorable, and that's why I always just remember it a lot, just because it's such a crazy like plot of like finding some crazy rock god type of thing.
Yeah,
Jungle planet with like children servants and
yeah,
that look
these,
just like human type of people, but they've never seen humans, and it's like, huh, weird.
yeah, these like tanned people who are physically fit and they wear like white clothes and they have white hair and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It kind of reminds me that episode of The Apple reminds me of Justice from The Next Generation. With the
Yeah.
it's the same kind of concept, kind of. You have physically fit people living on a planet who worship a god. Uh,
Yep.
but this one, the guy was in space rather than the one on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
which was a computer. This one was like a structure outside the planet on I mean on in space, and they treated it like
Yeah.
god, they treated it like a god. So they and they wanted to kill Rusty Crusher for destroying one of their arboretums. So
Yep.
and it's just a weird episode, and stuff like that. And it's kind of crazy that was the first time we actually saw the Tillman Recreation Plant in Southern California, which eventually became the shooting location for Starfleet Command in Next
Yep.
Generation and in the 24th Century era shows. So,
Yeah, that's pretty cool though.
yeah, it's super cool. We actually saw that Tillman Recreation Plant for the first time in Justice, but it becomes Starfleet Command. So who knows that it could be that way in the future? Who knows that a former recreation plant could be the headquarters of Starfleet Command?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, watch it. Will someone will carry down the line of like, hey, did you know? And then when we start getting closer to having something Federation, like people be like, remember that like sci-fi show?
Yeah,
And that was a thing. Let's just do it to like be campy. It's just like, all
yeah,
right.
yeah. We got this. Yeah, I would.
Self-fulfilling prophecy where everyone jokes about like the conspiracy that's like Gene Roddenberry's secretly a time traveler and he's just setting us up to be ready for when this actually happens, and then we just end up doing it because everybody believes that or plays with the idea of like, well, let's make it kind of like Star Trek, and then we just end up having Star Trek because everyone's like, let's do it. Let's just make it like that.
Yeah,
Or
and
people get so obsessed with Star Trek in the future that it becomes like Futurama, where Star Trek is illegal. You can't, make
yeah,
any reference or discussion about Star Trek in the future.
yes, yes. I remember that Futurama episode about that. They Star Trek is banned and stuff like that. I remember
Because
that.
too crazy of fans. The fans
Yeah.
were too crazy that they're like, no, absolutely.
No,
Fans do not
no,
reference Star Trek.
no. Oh God, it's so funny. Um, but about that. So you never know. They might put like a sign like they do in Riverside, Iowa, or in Bloomington, Indiana, or they, like
Future
site of
burning
Starfleet
site. Oh,
Command, future site
yeah,
of
there you
Starfleet.
go.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they haven't. Just someone should just make a sign for them and give it to them and be like, hey, do it.
yeah, for the Tillman Recreation Plant in Southern California. Yeah, definitely put like a sign like future site of Starfleet Command,
Yeah.
circa 24th century, just like they do for Riverside, Iowa, for the future birthplace of James
Yeah.
T. Kirk,
I think that'd be cool to do.
or the recent one
I
in
think that
Bloomington, the recent one in
Yeah,
Bloomington,
that's cool. Like
Indiana.
I like that with Captain Janeway. It's like
Yeah,
I've seen a
yeah,
lot of people post pictures with her and stuff. It's pretty sweet.
yeah, with the Captain Janeway statue, and that was all
Hmm.
crowdfunded. So
Yeah, I thought that was, I didn't even know it existed until I saw someone post about it, and I was like, "Well, that's cool. When did that happen?" And then found out that it was all crowdsourced. So I'm like, "That's really nice."
yeah, yeah, and it's all there right now. And I think Kate Mulgrew actually gave a message to them. She wasn't there because when they unveiled it last summer because of the pandemic, but
Yeah.
because they were doing it for the 25th anniversary of Voyager,
Hmm.
and I think she gave him like a voice, not voice message, a video message to him saying, "Congratulations, I seen the statue, I love it," or something like that. I don't know exactly how it went down, but
Yeah.
but that's pretty much what happened, and now we got that documentary for Voyager in the pipeline. Most crowd,
Hmm.
so like, speaking of Voyager, the most crowd-funded uh documentary in history.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what happens with coming with that. Probably won't come out till next year, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay though. Yeah, so I think that's about it for the weird episodes of Star Trek. Any final thoughts, Kenzie?
I think we got a pretty good list going.
Yeah, and
A lot, and a lot of shared ones as well. Because I
yeah,
think among a lot of Star Trek fans, people know the ones that like you could just say each series and people will straight up be like, I know exactly which one you're talking about. That's bad.
yeah. I have one final thought. I forgot to mention the episode Genesis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from Next Generation, the one where the crew
Mm-hmm.
de-evolved.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's another weird one.
my brother, okay, when we were kids, my brother and I watched Star Trek, and we got to the episode, and whenever Barclay appeared in engineering, half spider like,
Yeah,
it
it did.
freaked.
It Barbara became a spider. Just like
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I think yeah, it was creepy, like he just
Yeah.
pops out and scares Picard, scary like crazy. It scared me too, and it scared my brother.
Yeah, it
So,
is. It's like scary. It's a scary episode. Like it's creepy. Like
mhm.
I just like that'd be interesting. Like scary episodes of Star Trek, ones where I'm like, like came walking away from that being a little creeped out.
Yeah, we could definitely talk about scary episodes when it comes towards Halloween.
Yeah. That one will be re-mentioned because
Yes, that
that
will
was
be
a little
re-mentioned. Yep. Yep, definitely is that. So, next week, episode 19, as we mentioned at the top of this episode, it's going to be the underrated episodes of Star Trek. And there's a handful of them. It's like the ones that you watch, but, that are good, but they fly underneath your radar screens. So,
yeah, and it's really opinionated too because it might just be like a guilty pleasure episode you like without like
mhm,
you know underrated episode could also be someone's Threshold. Like maybe someone really likes Threshold, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
their underrated episode. But now it's probably pretty overrated because
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So until next week, take care and live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.